KGAN, how satisfying is it to win it? Like again, you were heavily favored, you guys came out from pretty much the beginning and dominated. How satisfying is that to see you do that?
Yeah, these games are always, they're just a little different to prepare for, especially when you're coming off a very high, intense game like a Virginia Tech. The way they set up that tournament, it really gives like an NCAA vibe. And the opponent, you don't have to work at all to get your team ready for one like that. So this one, you're just kind of wondering, how are they going to really come out, especially when you have 6 new faces. So I was really happy they came out with that intensity, and I thought they had a really, really nice focus for that first quarter. And I think anytime your team does what you feel like they should have done, there's a sense of not only satisfaction, but of relief, I think. Yeah.
Jen, it seems like you guys always get something out of your 6th player role, whether it was Hannah 2 years ago or Sydney last year. I mean, Taylor in that sense, what does she give you in the 6th player role?
With McCabe, right? There's 2 Taylors. Sometimes you can argue that Taylor Shrimlow is a pretty heck of a good 6th player too. That's the thing. Like, how do you want to utilize Taylor McCabe? And she's a really thoughtful player, and she didn't skip a beat. Everybody wants to start. But in my opening press conference, I said, I think the big thing I really love about this team is they're pushing to start, but they're really, really for each other. And there has to be a concession in your mind that Taylor handled that beautifully. She was hoping it wasn't going to be her, right? Maybe it would be Kylie that said would have come back in for Kylie, but she understood. And then her production was tremendous. And I think we're going to need that from Taylor McCabe, and she's going to play a pivotal role for us, and that's why I was thrilled to see her respond like that. And she's just a great kid. They all are really.
Defensively through 3 games, it feels like since game 1 you've taken a step forward. Northern Illinois to Virginia Tech to now. Just the level that you guys are playing defensively now hasn't been something we've seen in a while from an Iowa team.
Yeah.
Just kind of talk about what that could do for you guys if you can continue.
Yeah, when we got together, our staff, I kind of looked at what we had, and we felt like we had the potential to be a little better defensively. And when you graduate an era like we did, it's kind of hard to find places that you think you can be better, right? So I think that we needed to look at every little nook and cranny and think, okay, kind of measure what we lost, who we lost, what do we have coming in, how could we fill it. And with Lucy Olson, she's so long and she's as aggressive. Kylie, as you know, has always been a pretty good defender, and Sid's a really good defender, and Hannah's a good defender. So we thought, what, we graduated a whole lot of points, and we graduated a whole lot of flashy points. So you're not going to replicate that at all. But where could we maybe close a gap if we're not going to average that many points? Is there a way that we can get a little better on the defensive side to maybe offset that? So so far I think that's been a really good focus for us. Sean Sullivan, he's always loved defense, even when he was back with us at the beginning on the gray squad, and manager and so forth. And Raina's always kind of helped us with that D. There has to be a presence, someone that's always barking about get a stop and all that. But I think collectively our staff really knew that's an area we could get better on. Our hope so. But our schedule is, like you mentioned, is going to ramp up. I don't know how really good we are right now. I like what I'm seeing, but boy, Drake, they're great. Kansas, we got Washington State, go down to Thanksgiving, and then we're playing Tennessee and Iowa State. So we're going to get tested every which way for a really young team. But I sure like their effort that they're showing.
Jen, I mentioned it, 2 players in here, but you guys only had 3 turnovers in the first 27 minutes. You're playing at a fast pace, you're getting stops, but you're valuing every possession. For a group that has a lot of new faces along with returning, how encouraging is that this early you guys are controlling what you can?
Yeah, I think part of that is how they're playing defensively against us. They weren't really high pressure. They weren't in those passing lanes. So I think a lot of that was how they played defense. But this group is really pretty thoughtful. We don't have a lot of risk takers yet, right? We have a lot of youth. The biggest risk taker we have is Taylor Shrimlow. And she's made some pretty fun kind of little, flashier passes. But these guys are, you know, trying to do it right, and if it's there, we're going to do it, but we're not going to create something. I think partly they're not as confident, but they also want to do it so right. And I think that's why you're seeing the lower turnover, at least now. But again, it's so early. I need to, you know, I can think of a lot of things in my mind that I didn't really like what we did. But I am appreciative that they're taking care of the ball.
Coach, you've gone back to Drake every other year for 24 years now. What's this trip going to be like for you?
Well, it's, you know, just the thing that's so funny. It's the Drake's 50th anniversary of their women's basketball program. And there's a lot of brouhaha with it. And I just thought, wow, just the irony of it. I'm a proud Drake alum. I mean, Drake did so much for me as a young student athlete. And I've always said I have two favorite teams in the state. That one and, of course, ours. And I'm for Drake every game except the one that we have to play. But I just thought, you know, just the chances of that. So it's really special. The tough part is they're going to have a whole heck of a lot of motivation. They're doing an extremely great job. They've invited actually the history back from Drake. Every coach, every player. Actually, Wanda Ford, Lori Bauman are coming back. They're the two jerseys that are hanging up. So it's just going to be a fun celebration on Saturday. There's a little get-together for alums. But I know it's going to take everything we got because I've been on that side of the ball and I've been on this side of the ball for the last years, and it's always a fun game, but it's really, really tough when you go in there and you're wearing the Hawkeye uniform. But I have all the respect for Allison, and she's a friend of mine, so it will be fun, but it'll be emotional too.
Coach, do you think Iowa still has a target on its back? Even though
Yeah,
we're not ranked?
absolutely. I mean, just by virtue of being in the sport, you know, for so long, you know, we just had such a, you know, a fun run, and we've had a nice history, right? It's not just the last 2 years, you know, since the Sam Logic era. We've had a nice level of playing. But when you've been in the limelight as much as we are, that's the thing I keep trying to caution our players about is that doesn't really matter to anybody. What they see is the team that was in the NCAA championship games back to back. What they see is, you know, all the highlights that happened the last 2 years. And if they can come into this arena, which I'm so thankful for our fans continuing to show up, I mean, we're going to get everybody's best shot. And that's where I'm trying my hardest to get them to really realize that. I think they're understanding it because of Sam and Hannah, right? I mean, Sid and Hannah. But it's going to get a little bit more intense here as the schedule wears on. We're going to feel it.
We've talked a lot about Addie O'Grady so far this season. Tonight showed her passing ability on several occasions, I think kind of 4 or 5 times where she made some good passes.
Yeah.
Just how nice is it when you can put a center in there that can also
Yeah.
distribute the ball a bit? What does that do?
Yeah, and what's really nice is we can run our offense from the block, and sometimes we'll bring her up high. And Addie's always been a nice passer in the recruiting process. She actually, people have probably forgotten, but she was a high school teammate of Lauren Betts, who's the center at UCLA. And so you can imagine that high school high-low game. And so it was Addie that was throwing the high-low. I need to get her more opportunities for her to kind of showcase that. I think that is really a nice benefit because she does do a good job with the passing decisions.
Obviously, your veteran players have to do more than they've done in their careers, as is the case, I would guess, with every team. But do you ever, as a coach, know what you're going to get from those players? Can they do that? Can they, give you more?
Yeah, I think for us to really escalate as the competition ramps up, they're going to have to. We have to see a little bit more consistency and efficiency out of everybody who's been here before. I think the interesting part is, you can say like, yeah, we have the returners and we have age, but we don't necessarily have experience. Kylie Feuerbach played last year, but it wasn't a lot of minutes in the key punches. Taylor played last year, but it wasn't always the key minutes, right? Lucy has played in the Big East some key minutes, but she hasn't played here key minutes. Hannah and Sid have. So Hannah and Sid are wearing a lot because they also have to lead everybody in these tough games, what it's like at a Drake and how those in-state rivalries feel, and you got to bring it, and then they have to perform. So I think for us, you know, if we're going to keep on the winning track, or at least winning, whether that scoreboard happens or not, but progressing with how we're competing, I think you've hit it on the head. We have to have more consistency from the people that have been around, because the freshmen, they're just going to be freshmen. So you can't put all that on them to have their stat line stellar every game. I think that's what I want to see, is just a little bit more productivity of consistency across the board.
Coach asked you about three-point shooting on Monday, another game under 30% from three. Is that just a shot that this team might not need to be successful this year?
Oh, I think we're going to need it. I mean, I think we'll see as we go on. When I track those threes, they're just not great threes, some of them. And I think if I can get them to take those out of it, the percentage will go a little higher, because they'll then take a better one, it'll feel better, and they'll have more confidence. So a couple of them take a couple threes that are ill-advised, and they sit down and they're 0-2. And now they sit for a while, then they go in and they've had too much time to think about it. So I got to do a better job of getting them understanding when to take it, because they're not quite all green light shooters that we can just take it. Like Taylor McCabe, I'll have her take it till the cows come home, right? That kid is just a sharpshooter. So I just have to get that worked out a little bit. But it needs to improve too. I mean, we're going to need it. We got to have a threat, or else people are just going to sag off. Then Addie's job's harder. All the things are harder.
Lucy looks like she's about ready to hit a three.
Yeah.
She stops.
Yeah.
Very discerning about it.
Yeah, and I'm not as worried about Lucy. Lucy's just a thinker right now. She's trying to do it so right. So when you're trying to do it so right and lead and learn a new system, she's losing a little bit of what made Lucy Lucy. You know, just being able to play and you know, make a play, abandon the offense when she sees that seam. So I've been trying to work with her on just being a freelancer when she wants to be. But I'm telling you, this team is just, I just hope they have really good things in store, because they want to do good for all the right reasons. And it has nothing to do with themselves. And that's why I really have enjoyed it. And I think I've said it so many times. They're just a fun bunch to have a crack at this thing with.
Jane kind of
Last
touched on
one
it
right
earlier,
there.
but
Yeah.
with Taylor McCabe, you said either Kylie or her was going to move to the bench with Sydney coming back in the starting lineup. I just want to know, how was that conversation like with Taylor, and how encouraged with you with her performance today? Because I think she was second
Yeah.
score today. So.
You know, the beautiful thing, it's hardly a conversation. I walked off the court and just walked with her up to the locker room. I said, hey, yo, just want you to know. She's like, yeah, I know, because, Sid's, yeah, I thought that might happen. Fist bump, we're good. Sit down, watch the film come out, starts practice, and I probably hit 2 for 3 on threes, So I think that's the thing. Sometimes you can really stew and worry as a coach. You have to make sure you're massaging the conversation. But I just feel like there's always a little disappointment, and there should be, because we all want to start. I think everybody in the room would like to start, right? Whatever your starting role is at the newspapers or the TVs. But that's what I love about Taylor McCabe. One of the many.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Jen.